guys, and welcome back. Today we're jumping right in and ranking the top 20 best right wingers in the entire NHL. We went through the left wing list and that was pretty fun, but the right wing list is a lot more stacked and has a lot more quality. But who are the best right wingers right now in the NHL, and does your team have a top right wing right now? Watch till the end for the entire list, all the rankings, and hit that subscribe button if you're new for more hockey content just like this. Love making these videos, love making these ranking videos, and you won't want to miss a thing. Now, before we get into the top 20, I want to give a few honorable mentions out because there were so many wingers that missed this list, like 10 different guys. You can make the case for around 20 that I had to leave off this list. Two guys from the Golden Knights that just won the Stanley Cup in Jonathan Marchessault and Mark Stone. Two players that are highly deserving of praise, especially with the playoff run they went on. I also left out Mathew, who has put up some great productive seasons in his later twilight years with Minnesota. Also Jordan Eberle, who's been a consistent winger for the Seattle Kraken. But now let's get into the official top 20. And folks, let's start this out with a player that had a huge breakout season this last year, putting up some mega points and driving play greatly for the Canes, and that is Marty Necas, who will likely be a lot higher up this list in a couple of years' time. He's 24 years old, so still pretty young here, but at 6'2", 198 pounds. This last year is where we really saw him truly explode. 71 points in 82 games and half a point per game in the playoffs too. Now you saw in 2021, did pretty well, and for these rankings, I'm basing these players off of the last 3 years, so that's great to have included there. But now he gets a full 82-game season, is super productive in it, is fast, is quick, is electric, and that's the exact type of player the Canes need, especially on the right wing. Necas unlocking that offense has been a revelation for them. But now let's move on to number 19, and next up I have from the Arizona Coyotes, Nick Schmaltz, who to me is really underrated here. Doesn't really get a lot of talk. I mean, people will talk about Clayton Keller being underrated. To me, Nick Schmaltz might be more underrated, honestly. You see over the past 3 seasons, specifically the last 2, hovering around that just under a point per game level, but he's such a good play creator, is a consistent goal scorer too. Alongside Keller, obviously, is a fantastic teammate, but he never really had a consistent, true first-line center before Barrett Hayton came into the fold. That will obviously produce some more offense going forward, but he creates a lot of offense, and just like Keller, probably would get a lot more points if he was on a competent team. Nick Schmaltz, though, a great play driver, though, still, and I still love watching what he's able to create with AZ. Now on to number 18, and this was an incredibly difficult player to place because he's probably top 15 in points over the last 3 years among these players, but I had to rank him a little bit lower, and that is Zach Hyman of the Edmonton Oilers. Now, obviously, Zach Hyman, his point totals are inflated a bit because of who he plays with, but at the same time, he is an incredible complementary player. You see, over the past 3 seasons, the rise in points, and this last year, over a point per game, 83 points, 36 goals in 79 games, 11 points as well in 12 playoff games, 16 points in 16 playoff games the year before that. He's been incredibly consistent with Edmonton, and that's really, I think, deserves to be acknowledged. I think a lot of people assume that he, of course, is being carried by players like McDavid, but he is an extremely good complementary player. The exact type of complementary player you want alongside McDavid, and he's been perfect in that role. Whoever he plays with, though, he brings good versatility, and that's led to fantastic production over the years. Now on to number 17, and next up, let's go on to another Pacific Division winger here in Troy Terry. Now, the thing about Troy Terry, he might not put up the points that Zach Hyman does, but if he was on Connor McDavid's wing, I think he'd put up a lot more. You see over the past 3 seasons how he's been able to grow with Anaheim, 67 points in 75 games last year and 61 points in 70 games this year. A little bit of a dip in goal scoring, but his shot is still incredible and the play driving he has is fantastic. To me, this is a player that is really handicapped by just how bad Anaheim is. Sure, Trevor Zegras is a solid partner to have, but I feel like Troy Terry is in a position where he's a player that drives incredible results and just doesn't have a lot of points to back up, at least as many as he should. Once Anaheim gets better, once that power play gets a lot better, I think Troy Terry is going to be stacking up the point per game seasons like it's not. Now on to number 16, another player that had an incredibly underrated season, mostly because of the team he was on, and that is Travis Konecny of the Philadelphia Flyers. I'm gonna give Konecny the praise he deserves, man, because to me, he is extremely underrated, especially offensively. You see over the past few seasons, and specifically over the last year, 61 points in 60 games, 31 goals on a dreadful Flyers team. And to me, Konecny was brilliant last year. Now, although his defensive game is a little bit disappointing these last few seasons, to me, that offensive potential has been getting better and better, that consistency too. And even though the health hasn't been perfect, to me, once the Flyers get a little bit better, once he has an actually okay centerman, Konechny is going to do some great things. It's sad to see, though, just how bad the Flyers have been in the prime of his career. Next up, going on to number 15, and a player that I'm really sad I can't place higher because of health, because this is a player that, when healthy, I think could absolutely be a top 10 player on this list, and that is Nikolaj Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets. Now, of course, we're judging these players off the past 3 seasons, and Ehlers' health has been a disappointment. Hasn't had a full season really since 2018, but you can see 47 games in 2021, 62 games in 2022, 45 games in 2023. When he does play, he put up great results and play drives, one of the best play drivers in this entire list. I mean, he's so consistent at it, so good, so speedy, one of the best skaters out there. The problem is that health has been in question, and his production hasn't been as amazing as you'd maybe want. I still love him though, and I still love the offense he's able to create, but outside of that, the health has been a big concern and places him a lot lower, unfortunately. Now on to number 14, and a player that I would assume after next year will be even higher and is making a little bit of a resurgence for me personally, and that is Patrik Laine of the Columbus Blue Jackets. I mean, hey, he's back, in my opinion. You look at what he's done the past few years, and his first year at Columbus was kind of iffy, kind of okay, but these last 2 years offensively have produced some great things. Point per game in 2022 and 52 points, 55 games this last year. Defensively, though, I think is where we've seen the biggest improvement in Laine's game. He's actually been pretty decent, and I don't feel like I nor a lot of people give him credit for that. This last year on a dreadful Columbus team, I mean, I don't look at plus minus, but only being minus 12 is not too bad. But just the work ethic has turned a big page, and that is incredible. I cannot understate how important that is for Patrik Laine's game. We obviously know how he can produce offensively, but these last couple of years in a development stage with Columbus, getting a lot better defensively is a huge progression. And once Columbus gets a little bit better, popping that offense off of Adam Fantilli and Johnny Gaudreau is going to be blissful. Now we go to number 13, and a player that I love every single way. I love him, and he's going to do amazing things with the New Jersey Devils. Of course, was traded this offseason, but I have Tyler Toffoli now of New Jersey, and you see what he's done over the last 3 years. He was brilliant for the 2021 Habs. I mean, that team offensively, at least in the regular season, wasn't that great, and he carried them in a lot of ways, was great in the playoffs too. In 2022, put up some great results with the Flames and the Habs as well, and then this last year with the Flames, on another team that had a dreadful amount of offense. He carried that team. 73 points, 34 goals in 82 games. It was great in the World Championships. I just imagine what he's able to do with a player like Hischier or a player like Jack Hughes, and that type of offense is going to be electrifying. I love Tyler Toffoli, though. He hasn't slowed down an inch. In fact, is playing the best hockey of his entire career, and you'll love to see it, man. 31 years old, but still killing. Next up at number 12, let's go to a player that might be the lowest that he'll ever be. I think after this next year, he'll rebound quite a bit, and that is Mathew Barzal, who now with Bo Horvat as a center, he'll likely be on the right wing. We'll see how he's able to translate there, if he's able to have a full, healthy season there completely. I hope so, because talent-wise, he's absolutely top 10. We know what he can do. His playmaking is elite, but the problem is the consistency there has been a problem, and putting it all together has been a problem, simply put. I mean, 51 points, 58 games this last year. Better point production than it was last year, at least in terms of the points per game, or at least it seemed like it. But I feel like now having Bo Horvat as a center, there's so little excuses now. He needs to put up another point per game season at the very least. That's what he does best, because his defensive game, his overall game is definitely one of the worst on the Islanders. His offense needs to be elite, or else that value is going to be diminishing, especially for the contract the Islanders signed about at $9.1 million. Now let's go to number 11, though, and a player that just missed my top 10, and I feel really bad because it was literally by inches, and that is Alex Tuch of the Buffalo Sabres. Now, in terms of last season, I think he was incredible. 79 points in 74 games, unreal defensive play, and he likely will be higher after this next year. I love Alex Tuch, though. The leadership, the consistency, the work ethic in him, it's all amazing, and he's really worked hard to become an elite winger in this league. And you can see alongside Tage Thompson, the points he's been able to put up. His time in Buffalo has been monstrous, and it's great to see there. He likely will be in the top 10 for next year after another probably point per game season or higher. Now let's go on to the top 10, though, and start out with the top 10 right wingers right now in the NHL. And again, Tuch and this player were extremely close. But at number 10, I'm gonna go to the St. Louis Blues and go to Jordan Kyrou, who is in a really unique position in his career. Alongside Robert Thomas, has continued to put up great results. You can see the past 2 seasons, his breakout year in 2022, over a point per game, 75 points, 74 games. This last year, though, even though there were some inconsistencies, he still finished with 73 points, 37 goals on that Blues team. And considering how impressive he was offensively, it's hard to put him outside the top 10 for me. Now, on defense, there's a lot to be desired, and that is the biggest pitfall of Kyrou's game. Just the work ethic and the way he puts himself forward in the defensive zone. You want to see a lot more out of him next year. I'm just going to say that. But what the talent is, what it shows every night, is still elite, and I still had to put him. Now on to number 9, and a player that has risen so much over the last couple of years, and I love to see it because I've always been such a big fan of this player, and that is Adrian Kempe. I mean, he's probably in the offseason the biggest, new underrated player in the NHL, but I mean, it's deserved. I mean, what he's done the past 3 years, the past 2 years, what he's done goal scoring wise, 35 goals and 41 goals this last year. He was brilliant though this last season. The point production might not seem all too crazy at 67 points, but again, he got that 41 goal mark, great in the playoffs, 8 points in 6 games after 6 points in 7 playoff games in 2022, but the defensive play too. The speed and the quickness and the way he's able to create turnovers and the havoc he creates in the defensive zone for the better for LA. He is such an underrated defensive player. You combine that too with an unreal finishing ability, one of the best in the league right now. And to me, Adrian Kempe has proved incredibly valuable for this Kings team that needed offense, needed consistency. At 26 years old, Kempe's broth. Now let's go on to number 8, and a player that is in the, I guess, twilight years of his career, but it definitely has not shown, and that is Claude Giroux of the Ottawa Senators. To me, you still need to put Giroux as high as this. Even though he's 35 years old, he has not really shown any signs of aging. You can see over these past 3 years, he's been incredibly valuable, and just last year in 2022, got traded for the haul that Philadelphia got for him. You can see in 2021, solid production, 2022 on a horrible Flyers team, just continued to produce and was unreal for the Panthers. And this last year for the Sens, just under a point per game, but 79 points, 35 goals in 82 games. When Ottawa was struggling, Giroux seemed like the only force still putting everything together. He was a rock. He was completely solid for this Sens team, and you just have the overall game he provides, the leadership he provides, and Claude Giroux is incredibly valuable for the Sens, and still one of the best older players in the NHL right now. Now, speaking of amazing older players, let's go on to number 6, and I have my boy Joe Pavelski, 39 years old, and still one of the best players in the entire NHL, which is crazy to think about, but how could you not have him here? Over the past 3 seasons, hovering just below that point per game mark while providing amazing defensive play, one of the best tipping abilities in the NHL, and amazing playoff results too. 6 points in 7 games last year, which doesn't seem great, but he was really driving the bus for the Dallas Stars, who weren't generating any offense in the playoffs last year. And then this last season, 14 points in 14 playoff games, 9 goals, was elite there. He has been so consistent for the Stars team. I mean, do I even need to explain the leadership that Joe Pavelski provides? He's been so good, deserves a Stanley Cup, but frig off, Vegas. Whatever, I'm not going to dwell on it because I don't want to be sad today. Let's go on to number 6, and the player that just missed the top 5, but as you'll see, I mean, there was kind of no way he could be in the top 5. That is William Nylander of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I'm a huge fan of William Nylander, though, and he is going to get paid this next offseason wherever he goes, to Toronto, to some other team, and it's deserved. You look at what he's done the past 3 seasons, but the last 2 specifically, 80 points, 34 goals in 81 games last year, and then 87 points, 40 goals in 82 games this last season, and 10 points in 11 playoff games. Nylander, though, the big difference to me between him and Pavelski is just the play driving and the individual skill set that Nylander provides. Even though the overall game might be a little bit better with Joe Pavelski, to me, I value Nylander's skills a little bit more, at least individually. And to me, he just has been so consistent these last couple of years, so good alongside John Tavares as well, which it has been kind of hard to do at certain points. But Nylander has been a driver of offense on that second line, and being on the second line getting 87 points is miraculous. But let's start this top 5 off by going into number 5, and unfortunately, this is where I'm going to go with David Pastrnak. Now, here's the thing, I don't hate Pasta whatsoever. He's literally the only reason I don't dislike the Boston Bruins. I love him to pieces. To me, though, somebody had to be number 5 out of that group, and I'm gonna have Pastrnak in that spot. Now, some of that is because of the consistency. If we're just rating off this last year, where, of course, he was dominant. 61 goals, 113 points was insane. But you look at the 3-year sample size, 2021 was a little bit disappointing offensively. 2022 was a little bit better, especially in the goal scoring department. But the overall game has always been a little bit of a problem, and the physical play has always left a little bit to be desired, especially compared to a couple wingers we'll get into. To be with Pastrnak, the overall game is maybe the worst out of this next 5. But the offense obviously is incredible and still is one of the best in the NHL. This is the problem, because Pastrnak is probably absolutely a top 15 player in this league, but he comes at number 5 in this list. That's just how good the top end of this right wingers list is. I can't win here. Having Pastrnak at 5, it looks awful, but I had to do it. Next up, though, let's go on to number 4, and I'm going to go next to the Toronto Maple Leafs in Mitch Marner, who is in a really fascinating position. Out of the top 5 is probably the best overall, especially defensively. Absolutely is the best out of the 5 defensively, but the offense isn't as great. You can see he hasn't hit the 100-point plateau, especially alongside Matthews. That's a little bit disappointing to see, but he still has unreal talent and amazing playmaking ability, and we've seen how the playoffs have been better and better from year after year. But that overall offense and the point production not being as good puts him a little bit behind for me. Still, though, the overall game is the best out of these. But like we talked about in the left wingers rankings, offense is the most important thing for wingers in my opinion, and Marner being a little bit lesser in that department puts him behind for me. Next up at number 3, though, let's go to a player that does not have any issues offensively, and that is Nikita Kucherov of the Tampa Bay Lightning, who, even though he missed that complete 2021 regular season, which does hurt him a little bit for me if we're looking at the 3-year sample size, still, though, when he's been healthy, when he's been playing, he's been unreal. 69 points in 47 games last year, and 113 points in 82 games this last season. 83 assists. Unbelievable. And you can see, of course, what he's done in the playoffs, how consistent he's been there, and Kucherov still deserves to be this high. If we're talking pure offense, Kucherov is the best here. Defensively, though, that does leave a little bit of a pitfall, but it's still Nikita Kucherov. He's still Now let's go into the top 2 here, and next I'm going to go with a little bit of a hot take, but to me, I have Mikko Rantanen at this position, and some people might have him as the worst out of this last 4, Pastrnak, Marner, Kucherov, and Rantanen, but to me, Rantanen brings so much diversity to his game that it's hard to ignore. You, of course, have the power forward hits, you have the presence physically, which is the best out of the 4 we just talked about. And offensively, he doesn't skip a beat either. 92 points in 75 games last year with an unreal run in the playoffs in 2022. You also have this last season, in the regular season, 105 points in 82 games, and a decent amount without Nathan MacKinnon, where he got even better, even more productive, which really solidified just how good he is to me. Now, in terms of pure defense, his results haven't been amazing, but that's something that I think can be corrected. His playoff results over the past few years, though, have been a really, just over his entire career, have been fantastic. The point production has been great. The physical prowess he has is amazing. And to me, if we're talking about complete packages, there's very few players out there that bring as much as you'd want to the game, especially in the playoffs, as Mikko Rantanen does. Next up, let's go on to number 1 here, though, and if we're talking about complete packages in a right winger, this player has proved over the last couple of years to bring it in droves. Next up, let's go on to number 1, and let's go on to Florida Panthers number 1 right wing in Mathew Tkachuk. I mean, it's hard not to have Tkachuk in this spot with what he's done over the last little bit. The 2 last seasons, he has arguably been maybe the best winger in the NHL, the most complete. In 82 games with the Flames last year, 104 points, 42 goals, was unreal defensively, and physically is one of the best out there. This last season, though, was MVP caliber. 109 points in 79 games, 40 goals, 69 assists, 24 points in 20 games, en route to a Stanley Cup final appearance. But he was one of the main reasons. He was the main reason by the end the Panthers were making it. So many clutch goals, so many clutch moments. The only reason the Panthers made the playoffs in the first place, the only reason they sniffed the playoffs in the first place was Mathew Tkachuk. The value he brings might be one of the best in the league in terms of all forwards. He is so good, so consistent, one of the best play drivers out there, one of the best defensive and physical beasts out there too, and it's hard not to have Mathew Tkachuk number 1 as of right now in 2023. But those are my top 20 right wingers. Let us know down below what do you guys agree and disagree with, and of course I will expect a lot of disagreements, so let us know down below what you guys think. How would you rank that top 5? Do you see things differently? Do you have Marner, Rantanen, Pastrnak, Kucherov, Tkachuk number 1? Let us know all your thoughts down below. And of course, share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online. Get the rankings out there, and I will see you in the next one. Click on this card if you haven't for all my hockey rankings content as well, so you can binge that all you want. Thank you so much for joining us today, though. And goalies are next, folks. I'll see you then. Have a great day. and goodbye.